Hi, my name is Danesh Mohiuddin, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Danesh Mohiuddin about the new R4ID KLAATU anthology and more. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Originally from Hyderabad, India, Danesh is based in Toronto, Ontario. He studied art at Sheridan College. Danesh has produced illustration work for Gulf News, Scholastic, Time Out, and more. He continues to illustrate humorous ad campaigns, card games, designing toys, drawing university maps, doing graphic facilitation, comic books, and more. His future projects include graphic novels for Kids Can Press and a children's book for Owl Kids. Danesh is featured in the new R4ID KLAATU anthology. R4ID KLAATU is a dynamic new genre-driven volume from the unhinged imaginations of international creators. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Danesh Mohiuddin about the new R4ID KLAATU anthology and more. So, Danesh Mohiuddin, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. What I usually do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Okay, so I'm not too sure. I have obviously first memories are very vague and it's hard to put things in order, but it might have been Asterix or Tintin. I think I started with those and I vaguely remember Sunday comic strips in the newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
And with superhero comics specifically, this one I really remember what my first comic was, and I think it was probably the first appearance of Venom.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was I remember reading it and I still have it, it has no cover, it's torn to shreds, but I clearly remember the scene in which I don't know, it's the end, it's on the beach, and Venom is gets defeated by Spider-Man somehow in the water. And I've read that. That's the only comic I had, I think, for a year, so I just read it again and again.
Those are definitely good books growing up. So I'm wondering, who or what inspires you to create today?
Today I'm inspired, I guess. I'm drawn for both the past and the present. From the past, I'm still very inspired by Uderzo's work in Asterix, and I'm a very big fan of Mad magazine, specifically Harvey Kurtzman's and Will Elder's combination, and the comics they did together for Mad magazine, and then of course the classics like Jack Davis and Mort Drucker and Sergio Aragonis and Don Martin and Al Jaffe and Duck Edwing, and goes on and on. So I'm still inspired by those artists. And today, I guess, there's one more that I discovered recently, not recently, maybe in the last 10 years. His name is Len Norris. He was a cartoonist for the Vancouver Sun, I believe, in the 60s or 70s. And I just love his work. I'm just very inspired by the work that he does. Just his character work and his line work and composition and humor. And these days I'm really inspired by stuff on, I guess, things on Instagram and people around me in the R4ID studio, like Dax and Ramon and Scott and so many Marcus, and there's so many great artists. I'm just so lucky to be working around these artists, and there's some great stuff in Marvel right now, and I'm still really inspired by what the French comics, the stuff they're doing these days in their graphic novels, and some animation. I like some animation, and you also get those the making of movie books, animation books, where they show the behind the scenes art and concept paintings and character sketches and character designs for those books. So inspiration is everywhere, really.
Yeah, sounds like it. Wow, that's a lot. Very
Yeah.
good inspirations there. So you actually hinted at my next question. You work at the Raid Studio, so I'm wondering, what is your role there?
So at Raid Studio, I used to be there full time, as in I would have a space in Raid Studio, and I would work there. Like that would be my space, my studio space, and it was just in terms of my role specifically, I guess I'm, I try and collaborate. I just help in, like, I think we're really all about collaboration and ways in which we can collaborate and ways in which we can help each other out and ways in which we can learn from each other. And I'm just a part of that kind of comic book ecosystem, and I'm just enjoying being part of that. I don't specifically know what my role is as per se, but I'm just part of it right now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm learning a
Yeah,
lot from these guys.
sure. It sounds like a great working environment, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Hmm.
One of the other things that I understand you're a part of is the upcoming anthology called Raid KLAATU, that
That's
project.
right.
So I'm wondering, what can you talk about your contribution to that book and maybe the origin of the story as well?
So I forgot to mention. So this is the inspiration for my story. Is I must have watched about 3 cartoons 100 times when I was a kid, and one of those cartoons went back when we only had video cassettes and not Netflix. And I must have watched Walt Disney's Jungle Book about
Hmm.
100 times, and I think I just loved everything about it: the story, the drawings, the humor, the songs, and me myself, I'm also Indian, so I could relate a little bit to an Indian story. Not that I grew up in a jungle or anything, but I've been to India many times, and my
Hmm.
grandparents were there. But I grew up now. Now I'm a middle-aged Indian man, living in Toronto, and I thought, what if Mowgli, the boy from Jungle Book, never left the jungle, and he's now a 40-year-old, 45-year-old middle-aged Indian man like me, and I just put like a parody of it, and he's in this jungle. He's like tubby. He's got a mustache. He's like, Baloo's an alcoholic. Bagheera is even more cranky than before. Everyone is still there, and they're just like, I can't believe, and Mowgli's still there, and every day he's still, do you remember how the Jungle Book ends, the first one?
I forget. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's about him leaving the jungle to join the man village, and there's a girl. She's collecting water from the pond over there in her pot, and he goes to like help her, and then that's how he goes to the man village, right?
Hmm.
He ends up in the human village. So in this one, it's like 20 years or 30 years later, and he's still behind the bushes, and he still hasn't left, and he just goes and kind of watches every day.
Hmm.
And then the story goes on. I don't want to reveal too much about it, but
Right,
it's
right.
but it's but it's funny, and I think people will enjoy it. It's very much inspired by a lot of my love of parody and Mad
Hmm.
Magazine.
Yeah, there definitely was a lot of that growing up. I remember reading those Mad magazines, and even before, I mean Star Wars and Rocky and all the major entertainment, they try to parody and do a great job at it. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So, did you work on this alone, or did you have somebody else working with you on it?
I did work on this one alone.
Ah,
I got a little bit of help from Ramon in terms of some layout things here and there, and from Rob for a little bit of like just help with the dialogue here and there and tightening things up. And so that's a really advantage of being in the studio. You can get, just good critical feedback on your stuff. But no, this is actually my first comic book published, which I wrote myself and I drew myself. Yeah.
great! Congratulations, that's tremendous. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
always a good anthology. This is the fourth one they're doing, and I know it's a great
Hmm.
collaboration of different artists, and well,
Yes.
looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yes. The last anthology, I collaborated with a really fun writer. His name is Andrew Healy, and so that was a great experience as well. And this time,
Great.
I wanted to try and write it myself.
Sure. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, I know you have another project that I found out about. It's an infographic poster print with more than 250 characters. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that a wee bit?
Yeah, so I obviously I'm a big fan of comic books, and I'm also like an avid reader of history, especially like 20th and 19th century. I really enjoy reading history from that time period and reading literature from that time period. I just put those two, my love of comics and cartoons together with my love of history, and I made this poster. It's the idea is very simple. It's just a timeline of the first appearances of the most famous and popular fictional characters in our pop culture. It starts with one of the first science fiction characters in Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes all the way up to today with people like The Mandalorian, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fun poster. Like on one level, it's really great because you see all these characters that that you grew up with or your parents grew up with, and you recognize them, and people look at it and say, oh, I didn't realize like Mickey Mouse is this old or Popeye is that old, and like
Right.
it's just so on one level it's a fun poster where you just recognize all, you get good feeling from looking at all these characters. On another level, it's a study of the context, the political and scientific context into which fictional characters have been created. And it shows you the parallels between politics and fiction,
Hmm.
pretty
Interesting.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't meant to be that. It was originally just meant to be an infographic showing a timeline. And then as I did it, I was like, oh, I this is kind of when the Second World War happened, or oh wait, let
Mm-hmm.
me let me just put that in there and see how that makes sense. And this is when the Russian Revolution happened, and this is when man went to space, and this is when the Iranian Revolution happened, or 9/11, or so
Mm-hmm.
many different things. And
Right.
I started putting those things in a spreadsheet first, and then I drew them out. And as I drew them out, I started seeing amazing like correlations between events, and it just made me really think about like I always wondered like why do certain fictional characters endure over time, and why are they created in a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
and why are there so many, there's a type, like each decade has a theme, and like so I had all these questions about why, basically why are these characters created, why are they so famous, and why are they still with us.
Ah, very
So
intriguing. Yeah.
yeah, so this poster tries to look at that, and people, I have my own thoughts, and people also make their own observations on it. So it's basically it streams like a river, like it goes one way, then the other. It like so you just follow it all the way down.
Okay, cool. Now, did you you mentioned Mickey Mouse and Popeye? Did you apply your own sort of character design, or did you try to emulate anything in their poster?
No, I just my only thing that I wanted to make sure I did was to make them look how they looked when they first appeared.
Ah, okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, Mickey Mouse is famous for his white gloves, but he didn't have gloves when he first appeared. So, like
Right.
small details like that. Like Batman wore these funny purple gloves,
That's right. Yes.
which is very strange. And then
Yeah.
Woody Woodpecker actually had a really fun design. They really like these chubby feet, and
Hmm.
Captain America's shield was like this, like a old school, not the circle, but a emblem
Yes.
type
Right.
shield.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hulk was gray when he first appeared for his first issue.
Yeah.
So all these like, all these, this is also all information, right? That's why it's an infographic, because it tries to be accurate as much as possible to how things happen.
Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about the tools you use to create your art. Can you walk me through how you do your art and what tools you use?
Yeah, so my process really has evolved, and I'm working in about 6 or 7 different projects right now. And it's strange, and each one I'm doing something different. It's just very strange. I'll tell you my typical process is I work to get, if for comics or illustrations, I work very small, like about on a 2-inch square or a rectangle, and I just quickly sketch out my thumbnails. until I get something I like, and it's really, really small, like ridiculously small, until I see a shape I like, and then I scan that in, I blow it up, I print it out again, and then I draw over that on a bigger piece of paper with pencil. And then, now the place where I kind of vary depending on project is sometimes I'm inking with a brush, like I use a Winsor Newton brush and Black India ink, and that's honestly my favorite thing to work with. I just like love the process, like just dipping the brush in the ink and just how smoothly it flows on the paper, and it's very like, I don't know, meditative and poetic, and it's just very soothing.
Sure.
Whereas like now there are certain things that I have to go a bit faster, and I'm using Procreate a lot to ink.
Right.
And it's fine. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting past the fact that my my Procreate pen is tapping on a plastic screen, like plastic tapping on plastic and light shining in my face, and it's a very different experience. But I'm starting to kind of warm up to it a little bit for certain projects where I need to go faster, or whereas the client I might expect the client to make a lot of changes. So those things are easier digitally. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so it depends. So both. Right now I'm doing both digital and coloring. I do it all. I do all my coloring on Photoshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that digital is definitely important when you want to speed through a project, and unfortunately, it doesn't have the nuances that you might find in traditional methods. That's for sure.
No, it doesn't. But it has its own. There's certain ways, like a brush has certain limitations in the way it can move, and that creates its own style. Like you can't just take a brush and just make a circle quickly. It's
Right.
very difficult, right?
Yes.
Or like you can't just go, or you can use like a dip pen, but like there's certain things with a brush that you just have to go slowly, and so it's different. It's just very different.
Right. Oh, that's very good. Very good. So we've talked about two of your projects that are on the go, your poster and the RAID KLAATU project. I'm wondering if you have any other projects that you have coming up that you can talk about.
Yes, I mean, I'm working on a graphic novel right now with the Kids Can Press, which is it's 178 pages, and I'm working on the inks for that right now. I can't talk too much about it, but it's a Christmas theme to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun to work on. And then I'm working on 3 children's books right now.
Wow.
So 2 are they're all with Owl Kids, all of them. One of them is my own, which I'm writing and drawing, and the 2 others are with another writer. And I work with I do regular work with TD Bank, and TD Bank has an online digital magazine about financial education, financial information called Money Talk.
Oh, okay.
And I do a weekly editorial illustration for them. And then I'm doing concept work for these guys who are pitching an adult animation series.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So that's fun as well. I'm doing an infographic for another company. They're called Unifor. So I'm doing stuff for them, and I'm doing an illustration for an Indian restaurant.
Oh, cool.
Right
Very
now.
Good. Yeah.
And
sounds like you're busy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy right now.
That's good to be busy, that's for sure. So where do you recommend that people go online and through social media to find out about your current and future projects?
So my Instagram is, I guess, the most often updated, and that is Danesh Mo, so DANESHMO. That's my Instagram, and my website is www.daneshm, so DANESHM.com, and that's just my portfolio.
Very good. Well, Danesh, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
I think a thing I like to think about a lot is why I'm doing this. And I think so there's just one occasion where I was reading a Mad magazine with a friend of mine, and we used to read when we were kids. We used to read comics together with our friends. We used to sit down and read, and I remember we read this. It was a parody of Speed, and we just read it, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed so much. And I remember and that moment I was like, I just thought it was so amazing that a book or a comic book can do that to someone, that can have that effect on kids, or can have that effect on someone, that make them laugh so much, or just, make them have that experience. And that's, yeah. And I always remember that moment when I'm drawing, when I'm doing things, is that the fact that someone might look at my work and have this experience and enjoy that experience.
Thanks to Danesh for the chat. You can discover more about Danesh on Instagram at DANESHMO and online at DANESHM.com. You can discover more about Raid KLAATU on Kickstarter. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2022.